Hey everybody, this is Greg-Petix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Blast-Off #1, an amazing science fiction comic from Harvey Comics. Harvey was, of course, known for Casper the Friendly Ghost and Richie Rich and hot stuff. But in the mid-60s, they tried to do some serious titles, not just for little kids. And this is one of the ones they came up with. Only one issue was made, unfortunately, because this has got some talent behind it. It features the three Rocketeers, a Jack Kirby creation. And this cover is very kind of interesting. It's a collage of all these elements from a couple of three Rocketeer stories just mashed up. But this is new. This Rock of Rages does not appear in any story in here. I guess they were trying to make it more dramatic. But all these other things are just reprints from panels. Very odd idea for a cover. So let's crack this open. This is amazing because this came out in October 1965. This is the height of Jack Kirby's Marvel career. And somehow they got Jack Kirby to write and draw the story. It's assumed that Jack Kirby wrote the story. It's not positive. But it does have lots of Kirby elements, and some of the goofy dialogue leads a lot of people to believe it's Jack Kirby on the script as well as the pencils. But on top of that, Al Williamson inks this. Kirby and Williamson. I don't know how much those guys ever did together. Maybe they did at Atlas. I don't know. But this is some nice stuff. It's almost like when Wood inks Kirby. Al Williamson gives Kirby a nice little polish. But this is prime Kirby here. So we meet the three Rocketeers. Sergeant Beefy Brown, rugged and rowdy, but a right guy. Captain Kip McCoy, with an eye for adventure and a yen for action. Figures Faraday, get in a jam, and he'll figure a way out of it with any scientific principle at hand. See, I'm pretty sure that's Kirby writing. That sounds like his weird, clunky style. So this is just a little montage introducing the Rocketeers, promising all the great adventures that you'll read about them in the ensuing months. We have an ad here, very strange, right on the second page. I think this is early Neil Adams advertising work. Look at that kid. That's pretty Neil Adams. But let's get to the real comic. The three Rocketeers in the Lunar Goliaths. And we see these guys building a fighting robot, a boxing robot. They're on their moon base. They live on this moon base. And the guys who live in the space station, which is like a big ring, the wheel, and I think it's in the orbit around the moon. They're building their own robot. I guess these guys are just bored. So for a little recreation, they're going to each build their own robot as their champion, and they built a space platform so they can fight. They set up cameras so they can film the whole thing. Now this is amazing. Once again, Jack Kirby's fertile imagination. It's like he invented Rock'em Sock'em robots. But then again, maybe they were around already in 1965 and he was just riffing on them. Because, Jack Kirby was always looking at magazines and incorporating things from the real world into his work. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Kirby created Rock'em Sock'em robots here. So the robots start fighting. And then all of a sudden, one of their deep space platforms says, guys, there's a meteor storm headed your way. Take cover. They blow up the biggest asteroid that would totally destroy them, but all these other little meteors start raining down on the ship. Everyone takes cover. But then the strangest thing happens. Their robot, the one with the square head, the Rocketeers robot, he gets hit in the head by one of the meteors. And they're not programming the robot anymore because these robots only fight from remote control. Beefy, or whatever his name is, Beefy was controlling it. So when they took cover, they, obviously dropped the controls. But all of a sudden, their robot grabs the other robot, who's, of course, just inanimate because he has no remote control either, and he rescues him. It's almost like the rock hitting his head gave him free will or his own power of thought. So Figures, the smart guy, he runs out into the danger of the meteor storm, and they're like, Don't do it. Come back, figures. Because he's so fascinated. He's like, what the hell's going on? His brain case has been struck, but it hasn't immobilized him. This is insane. And the platform starts exploding. You can't take the stress of this meteor storm. So the other Rocketeers grab Figures for his own good. They're like, Figures, we gotta go. And he's like, no, we can't leave this robot behind. This is an amazing scientific discovery. And as they fly away back to their moon base, he wonders if it was some unknown element in the meteorite that had given intelligence to the robot. And of course, Beefy has to have the last word. And he says, I'd say a good boxing bout was worth more than a robot with rocks in the head anyway. Oh, God. Oh, Jack Kirby. Yeah, Jack Kirby wasn't known for his flair for humor. This is such a weird little story. 2-page story. It's by Howard Nostrand, writing and drawing, the great cartoonist who drew all through the 50s and 60s. Really interesting cartoonist. So I really can't make heads or tails of this story. We see a little shack in a desolate seacoast country, and where this little kid is playing with his homemade chemistry set. He's like, I think he's like 6 years old or something. And he's fiddling around. A furtive occupant of a sedan asks directions of Willie. Willie gives him directions, and the car drives to this huge scientific-looking building. Foreign-looking scientists get to work on a huge bomb from the guy's blueprints. Then a little later, a European car comes up, and the sinister guy driving asks directions. And he gives him directions. And he goes to the seacoast where a foreign sub takes on a cargo of explosives. And then another foreign car shows up. A little while later, he gives him directions where he's going to the secret airfield, I assume. And then finally the kid goes to his little experiment that he's been working on and presses the button. And it's a giant nuclear explosion. I don't understand the story at all, but I really like it just because it's nuts. And it's a head scratcher, that's for sure. I always point this out, but these mid-60s mainstream comics, such better coloring than I grew up with. Look at the reds and the oranges of this atomic cloud. Just so much better than the shit I grew up with. Here we have a second Three Rocketeer story. And this is The Great Moon Mystery. So one day, one of the Rocketeers, I think it's Beefy, is out on this little mobile, what do you call it? A survey track. And he finds a woman out on the moon in a spacesuit. She's unconscious. So he brings her back to their moon base. And it turns out it's a famous 3D television star, Trina Taylor. They're all just in awe of her beauty. And even Figures, the nerd, is like, all up for action. And they're like, settle down, she's not your type. So they get on their little rocket sled and they figure, we gotta find where she came from. How the hell is she on the moon? God, look at this great Al Williamson inking, by the way. Just using Zipatone. I love this just rocket swoosh with the red, orange, and yellow. Great rocks from Williamson. So all of a sudden, they see this crazy thing. They see the whole film crew and all their equipment rotating around this pillar of rock. Very strange. So Beefy, he's not much of a thinker. He just decides to shoot the base of this pillar with his laser rifle. And all of a sudden, it makes this, it bathes them in the sea of light. And as the light touches them, they turn into light. They turn into these beings of light. Look at the way he draws the moon's surface here, the inks of Al Williamson. Kirby never would have, had that kind of delicate line. So this page right here is worth the whole fucking comic. I love this page where they're getting whisked through the universe. They're just pure beings of energy and thought. So at the speed, maybe faster than the speed of light, they're just traveling through the universe, seeing all these crazy aliens on different planets. Here's some underwater civilization. They're like, let's get out of this planet in a hurry. I love this planet where all these like rock heads are buried all around at different depths. Just so strange. Crazy robot planet, they say they travel to. Man, this page is just like Kirby and Williamson. They should make a poster out of that. I'd hang that up on my wall. So Figures, the nerd, he basically says, guys, concentrate on the moon and that crater that we were at before we started shooting through the universe. Just concentrate your mind on it. And it works. All of a sudden, they're back. They're not beings of light anymore, and they're back where they started. And Figures, he kind of surmises that maybe this ancient race left a machine in the base of this pillar. And basically, they're not even sure if what they experienced was a dream or not. But, you know, they're just like, well, who knows? Maybe we went on a road trip through another dimension. I don't know. Who knows what just happened to us? And then some guys from the Moon Corps show up. And they take them back to the base. And the commanding officer interviews them. And he tells them what they saw. And he says, well, that's weird because that film crew, they were the ones who turned in the alarm for you. Seems you got them out of some fantastic scrape. And then you vanished in a puff of smoke. And Beefy is pretty bummed. He's like, Trina? We left her in the safety dome. Is she still there when we get back? He's like, nah, she went back with the TV people. They're on Earth by now. You guys have been missing for a week. With a 5-hour supply of oxygen. So it's this big mystery. I guess they maybe were turned into beings of light because they didn't need oxygen. You know, I forgot to mention something. In that first story with the boxing robot. I love that when they have to travel to that platform with their boxing robot, they ride him. This is such a Kirby goofy idea. He's just this little mini spaceship for him. Or shuttle. I just wish this robot was in Further Adventures. Okay, so now, that was pretty great, right? That shit? Now we fucking get Al Williamson pencils with Angelo Torres and Roy Krenkel inking him. The Fleagle Gang. Part of the Fleagle Gang. And this story is written by Larry Ivey, the kind of fan writer. He was, if you ever read comic book histories, this guy was almost like a shittier Forrest Gump. He was always at certain places, knew all these great artists at certain times, was around when Jim Warren started Creepy and Eerie. Larry Ivey kind of claims he gave him the idea. I think that's a contested idea, but yeah, Larry Ivey just did lots of fanzine stuff, though. Obviously loved EC Comics, the classic old ECs. And this must have been great for him getting to work with the Fleagles. I mean, he was friends with those guys, but still. So the Space Court, and a little splash shows us what's going to happen. But now we flash back. We're on Earth, and there's this scientist named Parker. And Parker has just done the first contact with another planet. He's bounced radar beams off the surface of Mars. Apparently, it's a very big achievement. He's feeling ill, though, and he can't really enjoy his achievement. And that night, he has to accept an award from the scientific organization, but he's feeling really bad, so he's like, I just gotta go. His friend's like, do you want me to drive you? And it's like, no, I can drive. So he gets in his car, and all of a sudden he sees this like green twister. And he's like, I can't move, can't press the accelerator. And he's getting closer and closer to it. And it sucks him up. This art is so good. And he's transported to another planet. And it turns out it's Mars. And it's just beautiful Al Williamson, drawing of Mars here. And these two guards run out from the castle, and they kind of grab him. And they take him to the castle. And he says, oh, the radar beam. They must have thought it was an act of war. It was an aggressive action. They must have think I attacked them. So they're going to punish me. So he's trying to, like, just basically psychically talk to them. And, no, and verbally, sorry. He's like, we didn't mean to harm you. I'm your friend. I'm your friend. And then he realizes that they're not understanding him. And, you know, he didn't change their minds. So he runs. He bolts for it. And beautiful inks here and art. So he's running from the guards. They're just chasing after him like, hey, wait up. And then he reaches a dead end. And right when the guards come up to him, he collapses. And he wakes up. And his friend's there. And he says, dude, I followed you. I was worried about you. And it turns out you passed out while you were driving. Luckily, you didn't crash. So, well, you did crash a little bit. You weren't hurt. And I got an ambulance. And the guy's like, whew, that was just a dream. Thank God. And then he feels something. He feels something around his neck. And he pulls out this medallion. And it's a Stellar Space Award to Professor Walter Parker for exceptional interplanetary activity in the realm of science, Martian League of Science. Oh, what a shock ending. It wasn't just a dream. These stories are pretty dopey. Like basically all the sci-fi stories back then. Always trying to have a little cute twist. We have two little one-page short stories. Not very good. And here we get another treat. This time we get Larry Ivy writing, Reed Crandall penciling, Al Williamson inking. This is a comic that I don't even think anyone knows about. I had never heard of this comic. I found it a couple years ago and like pretty cheap. And I was like, hey, that looks like Kirby. Little did I know that it had this extra bonus awesome shit. So we got these two spacemen from Earth. They've been in the Alpha Centauri system, looking for life. And they're not very hopeful. They've gone to almost every planet. There's no signs of life. And they're about to head home. They're about to give up. But then they find one more little planet. It's kind of like a very tiny planet. And they're like, okay, let's give it a shot. And look at this great EC-like flora. And, you know, as they fly down, they're like, whoa, it's got trees. It's very Earth-like. Totally great atmosphere. But then they crash into the trees. They're gawking so much at this planet that they're not paying attention. So they come out of their spaceship and realize that it's broken beyond repair. Even radioing Earth would take so long because it took them 4 years to make it to Alpha Centauri going at light speed. Radio waves are much slower. So they're just like, fuck, I guess this is our new home. Let's walk around and see what's going on. Love this panel with the cosmos in the background. So they find food that's actually edible, which is kind of amazing. A 1 in a million chance. And then they round a corner and they see dinosaurs that look just like the dinosaurs from our era, our Earth. And they're like, what the hell? That's a 1 in a billion chance. This doesn't make any sense. And then all of a sudden, these little aliens with jetpacks come up. And they're like, they've seen us, run for it. And they're like, it's no use, we're surrounded, we're doomed. But then through a mental voice, one of the aliens says, don't be afraid, we're friends. We come from another world too. This is one of our research centers for animal life. A millennia ago, we went to your planet and grabbed these dinosaurs. We had no idea that people had since come to live on your world. If you will let us, we will be glad to trade with your world and introduce you to other neighbors in space. We'll be able to take you to Earth in 1 day. They're so much more advanced. And he says, do you think we should accept their offer, Carl? And he says, I think their offer is just Jim Dandy. So it's just this like really quick wrap up. it builds up this huge story of like, oh, how are these guys going to survive on the planet? And then I guess like Due Machina, these guys just show up and like, no, we can take you home in a day. And everything's going to be great. But man, that is some nice art. These toys look really cool. I wish I could have some of those. So that's it for you. Blast Off #1. What a comic. And I don't know if you're like me, but I never heard of this shit before until I just found it in a long box somewhere. So I hope you can find it. It seems a little pricey. I looked up when I was looking up articles about this. Because I was trying to find out, this is weird to me because Jack Kirby's full on in his Marvel career now. Like, he's popping out titles every day doing Thor, Fantastic Four. I'm just amazed, like, why he did this. Maybe Harvey was offering tons of money. Part of me also wonders if this is from the late 50s. It was in their inventory draw. That seems more likely. It does kind of look like Jack Kirby's 50s work. But of course, it's got the Al Williamson inking over it, so that kind of makes it different. So I don't know. I couldn't find anything about the 3 Rocketeers. But they continue in a comic book called Unearthly Spectaculars. There's 3 issues of. I only have the second one. I really want those comics. They have some amazing shit in it. But the 3 Rocketeers continue, and I'm pretty sure without Jack Kirby's involvement. They get other artists and writers to do it. But there you have it. Blast Off #1. Buy it. Essential component of any good comic collection. This is a great little comic. And I'll see you next time at the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies.